Welcome everyone. Today what we're learning is creating a drag and drop for images using H5P on WordPress. So this drag and drop is not the same as the text drag and drop. It might look a little bit similar, but actually creating it is complete different way of creating it. So what we have here is a drag and drop. So we have images, we have text, and we drag the text and put it into the image. As you can see, the text can go into any one of these images. You can't have more than one text in one image. That's the way we set it up, and I'll show you all the options we use to create this. Let me get 1 out of 3. Right, I got my pictures and my text, check, and I got 1 out of 3. I can retry, I can try again, I can get it correct. So it's nice, it's interactive, it's got images. Let's check out how to create this. Let's get started. So to create a drag and drop images using H5P on WordPress, this is what you will need to do. So you go to your H5P plugin and you want to add a new activity, and in the search here, let's search for drag and drop. So we have drag and drop words. This is just for text, but what we're doing here, we're doing drag and drop using images. So we'll click on it. If you don't have it installed, you can install it, and then you can create the activity. So the first thing we'll do is we will give a title to our activity. We'll call it drag and drop, and we'll distinguish it as images. And this is basically where we are doing most of our work. So we have 2 steps. First one is the settings, and the other one is the task. So for the settings, you can add a background image, but we won't use a background image. You can use a background image and then create the drop zones to put over the background image. But what we're doing is we're uploading our own images and we're creating the drop zones on top of those. So we won't upload an image here. There is another way to do it using a background image, but we're not doing that. The task size is basically the window size for the activity. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller depending on what you need. So I will leave step 1 and I will go to the next step, step 2. So either here or there, and I'll click on step 2. Okay, so what you can see here is we have 3 options. We have add a drop zone, add text, and add an image. And we will need to add all of them. So let's start from the right side here, and we are adding an image. So I'll click here and I will add my images. I will add 3 images. So I'll add the first one. You got the pyramids, and I'll just call this EG. Hover text. If you want any text once the user hovers over the image, you can add that here. I'll leave that as that. Background opacity, we'll leave it at 100%. 100%. Infinite number of elements instances, clone this element so that it can be dragged to multiple drop zones. We don't want that. We want each element to be dragged once, so that when you drag the image, you can only drop it into one one drop zone. But it doesn't really matter because we're not really dragging images, we're dragging text. So we'll leave that unchecked. So I have my image, I have my alternative text, that's all I need. And this is added. This is our first image. I won't touch that. I'll just go over and I'll add my second image. Add my second image. That's the Eiffel Tower and alternative text FR. Probably not a good idea because that's the answer. But anyways, I'll just do it here. Leave the rest and say I'm done. And you can resize these images. So right now, let me go back to this. Right now, this image I think is too small. So what I will do is I'll just drag it. Remember, always drag images from corners to resize. That way the width and the height are maintained, or the ratio is maintained, and your images are not stretched and they don't look stretched and lose quality. Alright. Maybe make this one a little bigger as well. Let me add my third image here. Third and last image. And this is an image of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And I'll just put the alternative text as it, nothing else. Alright, so now I've got, make sure they're the same size. Now I've got my three images. I like symmetry. Alright. That looks good. So now I've got my three images. Next, I'm gonna add the text. So I'll put the answers, which is the text, in the form of a text. I'll give it a title as well. Italy. The text is Italy. Maybe just make it bold and make it a little bit bigger. 150, 175, 175 is fine. Don't need to align it. That's good. Background opacity, leave that as 100. So for this one, infinite number of element instances. That means when I drag the text and try to put it into the image, can I do that once or can I do that multiple times? So you will check this if one answer goes into more than one picture. So if you have to drag Italy and put it into maybe 3 or 4 different boxes, then you will check this box. But since our text Italy is only going into one picture, we'll leave that unchecked. So we have our text here, Italy, and we'll put it down here. Our second text. Wait, let me just quickly remove that. Okay, our second text. Let's call it France. Actually, this is not the title for the text. This is the title of the actual activity. So drag and drop, or at least I think so. Drag and drop images. We'll find out after we save it. Put that as France, make it bold, and go for 175. Again, leave the rest. Let me quickly just edit. So if you want to edit the text, you just click on the text. You can transform, move it, resize it. You can edit as well. France. Okay, that looks good. France, and we'll add the last text. And that is just Egypt. Make that bold and resize it to 175. You have a few other options here to play around with the text, like the text alignment, creating a list, adding a link, creating a horizontal line, like a break line between them. The format, so if you want to make it a heading 2, H2, H3, or formatted or normal, leave that as normal. We'll change the size here, 175, and you can also change the text color and the background of the text color. But we're not doing any of that fancy stuff, so we'll just add Egypt, resize the box. So right now I have my images, I have my text, but this activity now, these are just bare images and bare text. There's nothing that is special about them. So what we have to add next is we have to add the drop zones. These are basically where you will be dropping the answers into. So let me add the first drop zone, and let me call this drop zone, Italy. So this is the Italy drop zone. We don't want to show the label. We don't want it to say Italy on it. And I'll show you why. We don't want to give a tip, so you could leave a tip here. For example, this is a cool place. Doesn't really mean anything. I just want to show you how it will appear. So this is the message if it's correct. This is the message if it is not correct. This drop zone can contain only one element. This drop zone can contain only one element. And yes, that is what we need. You can't drag and drop more than one text into this drop zone. It only accepts one answer. This is for our purpose. If you had a drop zone where you could drag in multiple different texts, then you wouldn't check this. But for me, for the activity that I'm doing, I am checking it. You can only accept one. So we have a hint, kind of a tip, and we have a label, and that's it. All right, so you see it now. It's got this little icon for information. That's where it's gonna say this is a cool place. So what I'm gonna do now is, because this is called Italy, this is going over Italy. So now you see, you will have to drag the text and put it into a box, into the drop zone. So you can either drag Egypt, France, or Italy into this box, and behind the box you got the pictures. So the drop zone Italy is on top of Italy. That way you have to drag the Italy text and put it in this drop zone, and if you do that, that is considered correct. I'll create another drop zone. I'll call it France. I don't want to see the label. For the tip, I can say this place is not so cool. Just a tip. This drop zone can only contain one element. Okay. So now I have my France drop zone. put it on top of that. And finally, I'll create my last drop zone, and that is Egypt. Don't want to show the label. I won't add a tip here. And this drop zone can only contain one element, one text or one answer. Grab that, put it over there. So this is basically what the activity will look like for now. But as you can see, the pictures are not visible anymore. So what we have to do is we actually have to go into the drop zones and we need to edit them. We need to change the background opacity to 0. We don't want the drop zone to actually have any color in the background, because as we can see, the color right now is kind of blocking our images. So I'll say okay, and you see now this is the drop zone with transparent background, but it is all around the picture. So it looks fine. Edit, background 0, done. Go to France, edit. So I'll show you what it looks like if you put, for example, just 50. It will still kind of overlay the picture, not as bad as 100, but as you can see, it looks a little faded. I don't really like it. I like the picture to look exactly what it should be right here. Okay, so now we have our pictures, we have our drop zones, and we have our text. But we are not done. The activity doesn't know which answer is the correct answer, where text can go and text can't go. So we still have to do some things. So we go to our text now, and we have to edit our text. We'll go to Italy and edit. We see that we have some new options here after we added our drop zones. And it's asking us select drop zones. Which drop zones could this text go into? It's not asking about the correct answer. It's just asking which drop zone could this text go into. So I'll say all of them, because a student can drag this text and put it into any drop zone. So I'll say done. So you can see now this kind of changed its look, and it looks more interactive now. If, for example, I just say France, this can only go into France, and say okay. If I drag Italy and try to put it in this box, it won't let me. It'll just go back. If I try to drag it and put it here, it'll just go back. I can drag it and put it there into France. It can stay there, and then I can check my answer. But that's not what I want. I want it to be able to go into all boxes. Same with France. I want France to be able to be dropped into all drop zones. Same with Egypt. I want it to be able to go into all drop zones. Okay, so Egypt is kind of... Why is the G cut off? These little things that happen. Anyways, leave it cut off. So now I can drag this text and put it into any box I want. I can drag this, put it into any box I want. So now what we have to set up is we have to set up the correct answers. So we go back to our drop zones and we will see some new options. So I'll click on the France drop zone, and it says now select the correct element. Which element, if I dropped into this drop zone, would be considered correct? I can't say all, because that means you just drop anything in there and it'll be correct. So I'll say France, text, France. So if we dropped text France into the France drop zone, you get the correct answer. I don't want to do anything else. All the other options are the same. So did I do France? Okay, France. Now I go to Egypt. I edit Egypt. I select the correct answer here, the text Egypt, done. I go to the drop zone for Italy. I select the correct answer that can go in there, and that is Italy. I'm done. Now I am basically done. So one answer into each drop zone. We could have multiple answers, we could have set it up that way, but the easiest way to set it up is one answer for one drop zone, one correct answer for one drop zone. At this point, this is done. I have my 3 pictures, and I have the drop zones, and I have the text that we can drag and drop into the pictures. For the other settings, they're really the same as the settings you would see for all different activities, all other activities. Nothing special here. So the behavioral settings, the text overrides are all the same. We're not going to change that. So at this point, I feel like I'm done. Come up here, don't want to see the toolbar, and I'm going to create this activity, and we'll see what it looks like. All right, activity is created. Drag and drop images. So we have our text here, and the way we set it up, you see when I click the text and move it, you will see the outlined borders here around all the pictures. Those are the drop zones. It means I can drop this anywhere. I can drop it into France, I can drop it into Egypt, I can drop it into Italy. That is because we set them, that's how we set it up. This text is droppable into any of these drop zones. So that's the first thing. We have our notes or tips, hints that you can leave. This place is not so cool. This place is cool. So let's try this. Let's put Italy where it belongs. Let's put Egypt in France and France in Egypt. So we've already set up what the correct answers should be. And let's check our answers. And it tells me that Italy is correct, France is wrong, Egypt is wrong. The way that the reason why we got 0 out of 3 is because the way we set this up is that you have to get all of them correct to get. So if I go to France, Italy, Egypt, 3 out of 3. Let me refresh that. So the way we set it up is that you have to get all of them correct to get 3 out of 3. It's not the correct way. 0 out of 3. Let's try to get Italy, Egypt. Yeah. So what we can do is we can go and edit. If you want. So right here, give 1 point for the whole task. So it should be, we disable this, it should give 1 point for each. Ah, I see. So this is applying penalties. So it is not giving a 0 when you put it in the wrong place. It is giving a -1. So if I get 1 correct and 2 wrong, that gives me -1, not 1 out of 3, but a -1, because 1 correct is 1, and then one wrong, that brings it back to 0, and another wrong, that's a -1. So we don't want to apply penalties. So we disable the penalties. That way, if you get something wrong, you just get a 0. You don't get a -1. And we'll update that. And now I'll get 1 out of 3. So I'll get Egypt here and France. So that should give me 1 out of 3. And that works just fine. We can grab this shortcode to put it on the front end of our website. We can go to pages or posts. I'll just add a new post. So I copied that shortcode. Alright, so I'll add a title here. Number 6, drag and drop. And this one is images. We want to add a new block. This block has to be a shortcode block on WordPress. So shortcode block, insert it, and then we paste our shortcode into here. That is basically it. We'll publish it now, and we'll see what it looks like on the front end. So let me view my post. There we go. So as you can see, it's kind of, I don't like it when there are no borders. It's kind of difficult to know what's going on. So you could add a background image, something very subtle, something with very low opacity, something that's not distracting, but it would be kind of a square around it that would be like a border. It would kind of keep the activity together. But this is what it looks like. I don't think it looks bad. I think it looks fine. So we can do this. Let's do Italy, France, Egypt, and let's check. We get 3 out of 3. And that's it. Thank you very much.